The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show for you this evening. I'm going to be joined in just a moment by a very good friend of mine, Alex Fisher, who's going to be joining me as my guest panelist on Coach's Corner. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined once again by golf fitness expert Bob Forman as he gives us a few more tips to get us off on the right track this season when it comes to our fitness. So we'll talk to him a little bit later on in the broadcast. And then finally, I'll be joined a little bit later still by my very good featured guest, Justin Carlson. He's the Vice President of Sales for the Indoor Golf Shop. He'll be joining me on the second half of the broadcast, so you want to make sure you stick around for that. Just a quick reminder, if you want to tune into the broadcast, if you go to the iGolf Sports YouTube channel, or you can also find it on Spotify under Golf Talk Live. And if you're interested in just the audio version, you can go to Spreaker.com or wherever you listen to podcasts, you can listen to the audio version there. But if you go to YouTube.com/@iGolfSports, all of the broadcasts, video broadcasts are uploaded there every week. And there's always a new episode, or you can find it on Spotify.com and again, Spreaker.com for the audio version if you want to listen to that. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about my first guest, and then we'll get into our panel discussion here on Coach's Corner. As I mentioned, his name is Alex Fisher. He's originally from Nottingham, England. Alex and his wife, Mary, settled into Arizona to continue his golfing career here in the U.S. In 2012, he was recognized by Golf Digest as one of America's best young teachers and a top 40 under 40 instructors. And in 2020, he was made a top 25 instructor with Golf Tips Magazine and a contributing editor. He's also, right now, you'll find him as the director of instruction at the Glacier Club in Durango, Colorado. That's where he's going to spend from May through September of this year. And then a little bit later on in the season, he'll be heading back down to the JW Camelback Golf Club in Phoenix, Arizona, and he'll be there from October through April. So you want to check him in both locations, and we'll tell you how you can reach out to Alex a little bit later on in this segment. But Alex, welcome to Coach's Corner, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Hey, Ted, thanks for having me.
Always happen. And just a quick side note before we get into discussion, as I mentioned, he's now part of the Golf Tips Magazine instructional staff, if you will, and he's been putting some great, as I know most of you who subscribe to the magazine over the last several years have seen some of his great work, and he's going to be doing even more great stuff by way of videos and some other featured articles that are going to be posted up on golftipsmag.com. We'll tell you a little bit more about that later on as well. But Alex, I thought it would be a great idea to just touch on a little bit about you before we get into some specifics about the golf game and swing and things like that, just to give the audience, being this is your first time on the Coach's Corner segment of the show, and just so people have a better understanding of where you are and how you got to where you are. So when you look back over your career, and I think you had mentioned to me once before that you've been teaching golf now for, I think, over 20 years. Is that right?
Yep.
So you've been doing this for quite a while. You got quite a few notches under your belt. Did you ever imagine when you look back now that this is what you were going to be doing? Or was this something that sort of just came at a certain point in your life that you said, you know, I might want to give this a try? What sort of brought you to where you are now?
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I was very blessed to have some great parents. They gave me every opportunity to be successful in life. And I think it was always a dream, kind of a pipe dream at the time, that I would end up in the U.S. I always wanted to be here for some reason. And so when I left school, just was shy of my 16th birthday, just to start playing competitively. I've been working in a golf shop since age of 12, so I've been around golf for a long time. I think, like any junior, I had aspirations of playing at a high level, and as I got older and wiser, I realized I was a little bit out of my reach. but yeah, I ended up doing a PGM professional golf management program back in the UK. It was a pretty new program at the time, and I had the chance to intern somewhere for 6 months, and I lived in Naples, Florida. That's where I met my amazing wife, Mary. And once I came into the US, I just fell in love with the place. I knew this is where I wanted to be, and just feel very, very fortunate now to call it home. And yeah, the golf industry, golf in general, has been a huge part of my life, and I get to say that I enjoy going to work every day. A lot of fun. I don't look at it as a job necessarily. It's a great thing to be able to do for a living.
Yeah, it's I couldn't agree 100%. And I think when you find something that you're passionate about and you enjoy, and I think what a lot of golf professionals, I'm sure you feel the same way, is being able to teach this game to others and helping them reach their potential, whatever level it may be, is very satisfying. I think as a golf teach professional, and when you get to particularly your coaching players, obviously of all levels, but particularly when you start getting into some of the more elite players, whether it be collegiate or even those that are aspiring to be tour pros, that becomes even more satisfying when you get to help them along in their career and help them to reach and achieve some of their goals. So I think that's fantastic. What do you, when it comes to teaching golf specifically, what do you enjoy the most? And if there's one thing that you could change about how you teach, what might that be?
Yeah, so I think you kind of touched on it just then. It sounds cheesy, and I think any instructor would say this, but just having a positive effect on people in general and making them better. I can teach from 8 to 10 lessons a day in Scottsdale, and that's 8 to 10 different clients, but 8 to 10 different friends. And you get to know those people on a personal level as well, and you're part of their journey, not just for golf, but in their life. So I feel very blessed to have that, and I have a pretty fortunate large book of business. So I have a lot of clients that I work with that I'm definitely part of their journey, as I said. But for me, I'm constantly learning. I'm trying to get better. I think if you ever run into an instructor that thinks he knows everything or is very set in their ways, I think it's very short-sighted. So I don't know if I necessarily would say I would, change anything. Well, obviously, as I'm learning, I'm changing and adapting. But I think it's important that you're trying to get better every day. And for my craft, that's something that I want to do. I may have a female lady that I'm teaching, let's say Mavis, and she's struggling to get to her left side, and we can explain it 10 different ways. Maybe the 11th way is the one that's going to make most sense to her. So trying to come up with simpler ways to teach people and just continue to learn is really my mantra.
Yeah, it's always special too. It's funny that you say that, because I know working with a lot of students over the years, there's always been that sort of aha moment, if you will. And, they might be out in the practice tee, trying to work through the process and things just don't seem to be gelling. And then all of a sudden they'll hit that one shot and everything just seems to gel and go correct. And it's like, okay, I'll see you next week kind of thing. And they're excited to come back. And even though they've maybe struggled for the first, 30 minutes of the lesson, all of a sudden it starts to click and they start to understand what it is you're telling them. And there's a lot of satisfaction, as a professional like yourself. And I've done it for years as well. And there's just nothing better, I think, than being able to see that expression on their face and just to share in those moments and then just to be able to build off of that. So obviously we work with a lot of different people. You work with, as you said, many lessons every day, and a lot of our amateurs, we obviously see a lot of mistakes and things that they may not be doing quite the way they need to be doing. And obviously everybody's different, but what are some of the more common ones that you've noticed over your career? What are some of the sort of trending with the amateur golfers? And is there a specific way that you like to address them? How do you work through that process when you identify some of the issues that they're having?
Yeah, I think when I look at the lessons during the day, obviously a lot of slicers. Players that really struggle talking the ball or compressing the ball. And so it's a pretty common theme. And, when we look at all the information out there on social media and things like that, there's differing opinions on how to fix those things. So a lot of times you're trying to kind of almost unwind that twine of their thoughts and how they're overthinking things. A lot of times we'll get students that are trying to do something that they physically just can't do. And so, to me, the approach I take with every student is almost like if I'm mentoring an apprentice or a relay coach. I want to simplify things and make them fully understand what they're doing in the golf swing, and let them take ownership of their golf swing itself. So I think it's important. We can point out what the problem is. I think anybody can do that, but giving them specific drills to fix that, and specific fields. You mentioned fields earlier. That's huge. It's great to point out what the problem is, but if you don't know what the feeling is to correct it, that's definitely an issue that I've seen happen in the past.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, as you said, common threads that you see out there. There's a lot of, obviously, typically slicers of the ball. I mean, there are, many of them, and there are certain common elements that you can identify that usually isolate what the problem is. But again, when you're working with so many different body types and things like that, sometimes there's a few extra steps for this person as opposed to maybe this person over here. So it always, and I think that's what makes it interesting, is there's always a, pardon the expression, but a mixed bag, if you will, of what you get to deal with. So that kind of makes it exciting as well. It's not always the same thing. I mean, you might get 3 slicers in a row, but each one can be uniquely different. Maybe one is more of a grip issue. Maybe the other one is posture, and maybe or another one is a combination of 2 or 3 things. And so you identifying it, and then sort of problem solving it, and trying to then find the solution that's going to best be implemented for them. So I think it always makes it interesting for what we do as professionals, and I think that's what makes it fun as well. So you touched on right at the very beginning, about with so much changes and that, and technology is a big one. So there's been a lot of, sort of an onset of technology and available to not just the coaches, but also the students out there with, miniature launch monitors and things like that, that they can take with them to the golf course. Do you find it harder to sort of balance how you teach, because you're not just, you're learning to use the equipment, you're being trained on certain equipment that you use, and some students may have their own equipment that they're dealing with, in a private session. But are you finding it challenging at times because you're trying to focus on certain things? Maybe they're getting caught up in the numbers, or something else. And how do you find that balance? How do you balance technology with what you're doing and learning and understanding as a coach to with what they're being exposed to, maybe through other online methods or coaching, or what they're, that they're visually seeing on YouTube as an example? So how do you find that balance, and how do you sort of marriage the two together?
Yeah, I've been using a launch monitor now for quite a while, and I definitely did fall into that trap initially when I got it. I was like a kid on Christmas morning with this really fancy launch monitor, and my first student of the day, and we're analyzing 12 different swings, and we're looking at 12 different kinds of numbers and things like that. And you do get bogged down in the numbers. I think it's information's a good thing, but it's a powerful thing. And I've learned over the years to kind of figure it out a little bit, in the sense that I will use a launch monitor, not with every student. Most people don't really need it. But to me, I think it's important to be able to measure something so you can see how right or wrong something is. But now the consumers can get these launch monitors themselves. And to be honest, I mean, I've had quite a few students that have these units, but they don't fully understand how to use them. And when you've got over 20 different parameters being measured with a machine, even some of the best instructors around don't know what every single one of those numbers is. So I think it's important to use it when you feel like you need to do it. Even if I'm having my machine running, I may not tell the student every single swing or every 10th swing what their numbers are, but it's just really for me to kind of identify where the major problem areas are. But to be honest, I mean, you can't really go wrong with your own eye. I mean, you can tell pretty quickly by looking at somebody what the issue is. Or at least over the 20 years of teaching, I've been able to develop that knack. But, I think it's a good thing to have, and you see it on the ranges, the PGA and LPGA Tour events. Those players are looking at the numbers on a regular basis. So for the average golfer, I think you just got to be careful. I think it's important to maybe pick out a few numbers. My personal favorite numbers are face angle, path angle, angle attack. And I think if you can look at those 3 numbers and understand the parameters that you're looking for with those specific numbers, I think you can tell a lot about your golf swing. And some of those other numbers, as important as they are, they may not be necessarily as important as they are.
Yeah, and there's a lot of there's a lot of players out there, and I'm talking about amateur players who, and I remember speaking with another fellow pro one time, and he was saying what was really interesting is he had a new student, and the student, insisted, I want to get on the TrackMan, or I want to get on this, and I want to see what my numbers are. And, through the conversations, how often do you play? Well, I might play once a month or once every, and he said, what do you really care about the numbers? He said, well, I just like seeing what the numbers are. And, it's just because they sometimes, especially if they can hit a decent ball, they like to brag, well, my smash factor was this, or they're bragging to their buddies. And, so they're looking for that edge. And, a lot of times, again, they get caught up in that. And I think one of the dangers that I've found, and I think you touched on it quite well, is you have to find a balance as a coach that you don't get too caught up in the technology either, because it is exciting. It's like you said, just like Christmas opening a new gift, and you're excited about testing it out. But if you're relying solely on that technology to teach your lessons, and you're not being able to train yourself to visually see it, or hear it, or whatever, approach you're taking, then you run to the risk that if that technology is not available, whether it's the power's gone out or what have you, then you're kind of stuck, because you've put all your eggs in one basket, and the student's sitting there and it's like, well, we got to cancel the lesson today because, my TrackMan's not running, or this isn't running. So you have to find a balance as a coach. And I think you can sometimes, even though it's exciting, I think a lot of coaches early on were spending so much of their time going through the dynamics of how the equipment worked with their student that the student just got overwhelmed, because they're not being trained on it as you are. And so it's exciting to see the numbers, but they don't need to know all the intricacies. So it's really more of a tool for you to be able to better understand what's going on, below the surface. But at the same time, you have to be proficient enough at what you do to not rely on that technology 100% of the time. So it's a good balancing act, I think. Here's an interesting thing, and I know that you've probably been faced with this a number of times over your career. You've always got that guy that shows up, a few days before the club championship or some big event he's excited about, and whether it's a match play or what have you, and he wants to to get that last minute lesson in. Maybe you're lucky if you get an hour with him. What would you spend what would you spend that time doing? If you had a guy comes in, he says, okay, this weekend, Alex, I've got a big event coming up, or maybe early next week. What can you do? How can you help my game? And what are you going to look at? And what are you going to try to help him with that's going to give him the best opportunity to have some fun, obviously, and get some good results in that event?
Yeah. And so I think the key is obviously asking lots of questions and get that out of the way as quick as you can. But from a full swing standpoint, look for the low-hanging fruit. What's the one thing that's going to have the biggest effect on his golf swing or his golf shots? And really trying to eliminate one miss. If you can eliminate one side of the golf course, I think that's a key. So that's something I'd look out from a full swing standpoint. But even if the full swing's great and you go into a tournament swinging it well, short game is so key. I mean, if we're looking at about 70% of your shots being inside of 100 yards, there's so many things there that we could look at. Can we be a little bit better at chipping and pitching? Because that's going to have a positive effect when it comes to your putting. So
sure.
Are there some gains there as well? I typically wouldn't get too deep into the weeds when it comes to the full swing, just trying to kind of clean up some basic, simple little things. But then really just try and kind of touch on some short game. And depending if we have the time, we may go out on the golf course and play at least one hole. And that way I can look to see how they deal in playing situations, but also just the basic things like alignment. It's amazing how golfers just in general struggle like heck when it comes to alignment. They can be swinging it well, their path looks great, their face is great, but if they're aiming 15 yards right of their flag and they're wondering why it's going to the right, you need to identify that to them pretty quickly, so that way they can keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah, and I think there's some basic things that you can certainly do. Again, you have limited time. Even if you're at best situation, you get an hour with them. Certainly a lot of time to look at some things, and obviously, as you said, ask a lot of probing questions to draw out of him or her, for that case, what it is that they're struggling with. But I think you want to give them the best opportunity for success, and really the only way to do that is to look at really I look at two things: is what's going to give them the best opportunity to score and reduce the likelihood of big numbers, and that's obviously in the short game. And then the other thing, which I like you mentioned about taking them out, if you can, out in the golf course for a hole, maybe even two, and seeing how they manage themselves during a hole. Kind of how's their course management? Are they just standing up there and giving it a whack, or are they putting some thought into, picking a target out and going through their pre-shot routine? It's amazing how many, players you see where, they'll go through a nice pre-shot routine off the tee and they get in their next shot and they're just standing over the ball and they're hitting it right away. They're not going through that routine again. But if you watch the pros on TV, every single shot they do, they go through that same routine. And there's a reason why they do that is they get themselves, their nerves are settling down. They're, thinking about, okay, this is my target. I'm getting lined up. I'm going through my process and my routine, as it were, and I'm getting ready to hit the next shot. Where you see with a lot of amateurs, it's very sketchy. 1 minute, their routine might be 20 seconds long. The next minute it's a minute. And, the next minute it might be 5 seconds and they're hitting the ball and there's no consistency. So I think that's great to get them out on the golf course as well when you have limited time and just see what it is they're doing. What process are they going through as they navigate their way around that hole, and maybe give them some guidance there as well. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I think every lesson that I do, there's one word that pops up every time: consistency. And everybody wants to be consistent, but you have to have a routine and execute that same routine over and over again. It sounds boring, but we need to try and make ourselves the most boring golfer possible and do the same routine over and over and over again. And it's amazing when I take people out on the golf course, if we do, say, 4 or 5 holes, after the third hole, that routine starts to kind of fall apart a little bit. And that's a lot of times it's because the student might be overreactionary towards a bad shot, and he starts to kind of fiddle around and kind of always try and kind of band-aid things. But yeah, I think that magic word consistency really revolves around having a solid routine.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And even a post-shot routine, I mean, a lot of people forget about that as well. Sometimes you need to, kind of do a post-shot routine and evaluate what's going on. You don't want to dwell on things, but you want to evaluate, okay, did I execute the shot I wanted? And if not, if it's something that needs to be worked on, let's put that in the old file manager, if you will, and we'll deal with that, next time I'm with my coach or a little bit after the round or something like that. But so you want to kind of do a very quick post round as you're maybe walking to your next shot or to the next hole. So I think that's just as important as well, is that you sort of evaluate where things are without, again, getting too far in the weeds. Here's something too, Alex, that I think, as a coach, you're going to be faced with, and that is, and it doesn't matter, even if it's maybe somebody that's just been playing for a short period of time, or some of our more seasoned players that have been playing for a few years, they tend to develop a lot of bad habits with their golf swing. And I mean, there's a million of them, but do you focus on making an overall change? I mean, obviously you're going to go through an assessment, you're going to look at the whole picture, or do you just sort of eliminate the worst of them up front? Let's sort of, we've identified, say, 3 or 4 or even 5 things. Let's deal with the worst of them first and see how the others fall in line after, if it changes some of them. What's your procedure when you see somebody that's got some bad habits?
Yeah, so for me, I really want to start from impact and work my way backwards. I think it's important to get players into the right position at impact and make them understand that they're not trying to return back to the same position that they started the swing in. So making sure the weight's on their front foot, making sure their hips are clearing, getting the shaft leaning forward so we can start to compress the ball better. And then really work our way back from that. So whether it is a player that's coming over the top, or if it's a player that's flipping and scooping or doesn't have control over the club face, if you can get them working on small swings first and get them compressing, that's a great foundation to start from. I don't believe in Band-Aid fixes because they just don't work. You might get through a round and it might stick for a little bit, but it's not going to be there for the long run. So make sure that we kind of focus on impact and impact drills, and then depending on how the swing evolves, working on other specific drills as well, and making sure that they fully understand how to do it. I'm a big believer that people, when they get to the golf course, their body's not ready to swing a golf club. The golf swing is not conducive to how the body moves. So I'll have a student that may warm up at home and then drive 20 minutes to the golf course and then needs to warm up again. But it doesn't last. So we'll talk about how to prepare for a practice session or for a round of golf and make sure that the body's moving in the right order, the right way, the right amount. And then from there, get into the specific drills that we may be working on.
Yeah, great point. So I wanted to ask you this, because this is something, again, that often we get faced with. and is a motivation factor. As coaches, and I think if you're able to answer this and crack the code, as it were, I think you'll just become one of those coaches in the stratosphere, because this is one that stumped a lot of them. But we work with students, however, whether it's a 30-minute or an hour lesson or what have you, or a series of lessons, and they're just not following through. And again, some of it we understand, there's time commitments and things like that, but they're just not really following through in between each session. So maybe you're let's say you're dealing with somebody today out in the golf course, and you're going to see them next week or the week after, and you've given them kind of an assignment. Say, okay, Bob, I want you to do this over the next week or two before we get back together again, and then we'll review it quickly when you come back, and then we'll get into the next phase of it, or make some further adjustments. But one of the things, as I said, it's sometimes hard to do that. Have you found the secret sauce to motivate players to do that? Because you know what I'm talking about. It's just some players, that are really serious about their game will do that, but there's a lot to. What do you do to motivate players like that and get them excited about doing that? And as opposed to thinking, well, this is a homework assignment that I'm being given. I'm never liked homework at school, so I don't want to do this. But you know what I'm saying? Time is different. I understand people have a lot of other family commitments and that, but what do you do? Or do you find ways to motivate people to want to engage when they're away from the lesson tee with you?
Well, yeah. I think the cheesy term is, I think it's a goal without a plan is a dream. And so, having common goals set and realistic goals as well. If I have somebody that says to me, I want to drop my score by 10 strokes, and depending on where their handicap is, that could be pretty easy to do if you're a 90 shooter down to an 80 shooter. But mapping out the plan, what is the journey going to be to take off those 10 strokes? It's great to have that goal and want to lower your scores, but having a common kind of plan put together with the student of how we're going to do that. Can we nibble away at some putting here and chipping there, and can we start to hit some fairways more consistently? I think that's an important thing, and make sure that you're both on the same page when it comes to that. But to me, as you said, everybody's busy. Golf is supposed to be fun, and sometimes people will set goals that are just not realistic, unless they're about to retire and they have the time to do it.
Sure.
Well, it does happen where I'll have a student that I work with, and I'll see him a couple of weeks down the road, and we'll talk about, hey, what have you been doing for the last 2 weeks? And I thought about going to the driving range, but I wasn't able to. Or he said they tried to, but they didn't go. And they're responsible for that. And we talk about, okay, this is what your goal is. We're going to have to figure out a way, whether if it's getting a putting net home, or if it's getting a chipping net in the backyard, something that you can do. You don't have to be at a driving range to get better. What are the things you can do at home? I think that's a good thing to do. But I think being on the same page, having realistic goals, I think that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think finally, when it comes to working with new students, I think it's important as a coach or instructor that you really have that conversation up front to identify what their goals are and do that assessment. So it's not just a matter of seeing where they are physically in their game, but just saying, okay, what is it you want to get out of this? Or are you just looking to, is it distance that you're after? Is it a better, more consistent game overall? Or are you just wanting to make it so that you can have more fun? Because there's a lot of people that struggle out there for sure. So Alex, I just want to, as we get ready to wrap up here, I just wanted to ask you, one of the things that, I know you're familiar with the National Golf Foundation, one of the things that's always sort of puzzling is there's so many golfers. They say, according to their statistics, about 50% of all golfers still struggle to break 100. And I'm just curious to get your thoughts on why you think that is, because with so much technology and so much great instruction out there, why are we still seem to have a tough time for a lot of golfers out there trying to get those numbers down? What do you think is causing that, or what is it like?
To me, that's a pretty simple thing to answer there. It's only human nature to want to practice the things you really enjoy. And,
right.
You mentioned about the golf courses being in better condition and more instruction out there, which is good and bad because you can get conflicting messages. But even equipment now, if you believe the manufacturers, equipment goes further now, but golfers aren't getting better, and it's just because of their practice tendencies. They tend to want to practice the things they really enjoy. If you looked into a golf bag, I guarantee you the golf club that's going to be the most dirtiest with the shiniest grip is going to be a 7-9. And when you think about it realistically, how many times are you going to hit a 7-9 in a round? So when I'm working with a student that wants to break 100, it sounds kind of cocky on my part, but it really isn't that difficult to do. If you follow kind of a very simple system of get on a par 3 and 2 and 2 putt, par 4, get on the green in 3 and 2 putt, and then par 5, get on the green in 4 and 2 putt, and take that logical approach, you start to, the student starts to see the progress happen really quickly. And really to do that, you need to have one club that you can tee off with well. It doesn't have to be a driver, but it's a bonus if you can hit some fairway wood or a driver of sorts. You need one club that you can get off the ground without a tee in the middle of the fairway, and then kind of have a really reasonable short game. Through chipping and pitching, your putting is going to improve dramatically. So I think just taking a logical approach and understanding that, if you have a little bit of a structure behind how you practice and you practice the things you don't necessarily enjoy, you'll see your scores improve quickly.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, I want to thank you first off, Alex, for joining me tonight on Coach's Corner. It's been a pleasure having you on here, and this was your first panel discussion that you had with me, and I always look forward to that, and I look forward to having you come back again. But for those viewers that are going to be tuning into this show, and if they want to reach out to you, and whether they're going to be in the Colorado area or right now until a little bit later through the season, and then you're going to be heading back down to Camelback in Arizona in the fall. So how can they reach you, or if they want to just get in touch with you online, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, well, so thank you again for having me and being easy on me. But I really do appreciate that. Best way to get a hold of me is going to be through my website, which is alexfisherpga.com. There's a contact form on there that you can click and to submit to me.
Sounds good. And don't forget, for those, as I mentioned earlier at the top of the show, if you want to see more of Alex's great work, you want to go visit golftipsmag.com. You're going to see a lot more of his not only articles that he's written, but tips and also some great videos that are going to be coming up. So you want to check those out as well. Go to golftipsmag.com. But I'm going to take a quick commercial break. And when I come back, I'm going to be joined by this evening's fitness guest, Bob Forman, is going to be talking about some of the ways that we can get you into shape for this season, both physically and mentally as well. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, and I'm excited now to bring on my next guest, certified golf fitness professional, Bob Forman. Let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get going into our fitness segment. He's the former director of fitness and wellness for the Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He's internationally known as a leader in the field of golf fitness, and his programs have been recognized multiple years from 2021 to 2023 by the Golf Fitness Association of America. And he holds a Master of Science degree in exercise physiology and is a certified golf fitness instructor through TPI, or Titleist Performance Institute, and he's a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine. Bob, welcome back. We're going to cover a lot of stuff tonight, or a few things this week, and then we'll get to pick up on the next episode as well, some of the other stuff. But this is going to be fitness must-haves for a better golf swing. Everybody wants a better golf swing, but we've got to get ourselves in shape. And now that we're getting into our warmer season and a lot of golfers out there are able to get out and start swinging a golf club, we want to make sure they're in tip-top shape before they do so. So let's talk about the first point we're going to get to. We're going to get through a few of these. We won't get through them all tonight, but we'll pick it up on the next show. So we want to find balance between our chest and upper body muscles and have sort of what you call a neutral spine at address angle. So give us an explanation of what exactly does that mean for those of us that are not certified golf fitness professionals.
Yeah, well, this is kind of an epidemic these days in golf. It's what's called the C posture. It's a bowing of the spine at address when the golfer's standing over the ball. And it's more prevalent today because of technology, computers, handheld games. Every dentist I work with pretty much has C posture because of the position that the body is placed in most of the day, and the body will adapt to that position. And when you're hunched over a computer or a patient, you're kind of rounded in the shoulders. So what happens is you shorten or tighten these muscles across the front part of the chest, and you elongate and you weaken the muscles in the upper back called the rhomboids. So the shoulder blades tend to flare out and allows that rounding of the shoulder. In the golf swing, like I say, it shows up as the C posture, which is not a good thing because it will limit your backswing. So it may detract from distance that you would like to see in your golf shots. It can also cause things like the golfer going into what's called a reverse spine, where their spine angle is now leaning back towards the target versus staying away from the target. And that just doesn't set the golfer up well to initiate the downswing in the proper sequence. So a lot of things can go wrong with this imbalance that is very prevalent today. And we talked about it over the past few weeks, exercises that you can do. Basically, you want to stretch the tightness. So you want to get into an exercise that will stretch the muscles across the front part of the chest and shoulders. And you want to strengthen those rhomboids in the upper back. So yeah, very prevalent. And like I say, easy to fix. A lot of golfers don't realize they have this posture unless it's pointed out to them. And, it's something where they can work with their pros or work with their golf fitness professionals to help them correct that.
And let me just point out, too, because this is something that I think typically in the past was more prevalent with some of our older or more senior golfers. But now you're seeing it even in the younger golfers because of things like computers and cell phones and all kinds of other things that they're doing. But is that not the case? I mean, it was typically something that, as we get older, I mean, our posture just naturally, we're not as physically active in some cases. So that was something that you saw a lot more of in our older golfers. But now you're seeing it even in, I see 20, 30-year-olds out in the tee and, the lesson tee, and they're slumped over, or see them, at their, at the mall, and they're slumped over looking at their phones all day long. And so this is something you're seeing in the younger generation now too, right?
Yeah, I mean, we got strong thumbs, playing those games. But our postures are horrendous. I mean, and it impacts your golf swing, but it can also impact your health, because as you're in that rounded shoulder posture, you're crowding out the chest cavity where the heart and lungs are. So it can detract from their efficiency as well. Yeah.
And, I know there's a lot of things, and we'll talk about that in a bit more detail at another point. But I know there's a lot of exercise that you can do. I know, even just pulling back, your shoulders. Obviously there's a correct way to do it, but and just learning to sit up with a more erect posture, if you will, and learning to sit straight. My mother, I remember when I was a kid, used to always say, sit with your shoulders back. Don't sit slumped over at the dinner table or whatever. And, now at the time I thought, here she goes. But now when I look back, she was right. And here's another issue that I think a lot of, golfers face and that is their hip flexors. You talk about having flexibility there, and that helps to prevent a lot of swing, and that in that lower back, that creates that sort of S posture, which is something a little bit different. So talk about what happens here and what typically some of the problems might arise.
Yeah, tight hip flexors and sway back in the lower back tends to be more prevalent in women and in younger golfers. And what happens when the hip flexors, which are the muscles mainly thought of as in the front part of the hip flexors actually start on your spine. They come through the hip and they attach to your thighs. But if you think of them as being those muscles in the front part of your hip, when they are tight, they're going to take that hip bone and rotate it forward. So it'll have like an anterior tilt of the hip. And what that does is it takes that normal curve in the lower back and it enhances it. It makes it even more of a curve, and that's what that sway back is. So it puts a lot more pressure on the discs than normal, and it'll wear out the discs faster than normal. And plus, you combine that with the rotation now of the golf swing, and that's just a perfect storm for low back conditions, low backache. You see a lot of, unfortunately, young women golfers that have back issues, and the mechanism is the tight hip flexors that create that muscle imbalance, or I should say that misalignment in the spine. And the reason why more women tend to have it is, heels. Heels will kind of change your center of gravity so that you have to actually arch your back a little bit more so that you don't fall over on your face. Pregnancy will do that. Pot belly and beer belly will do that. So, there are things that you can do, like, again, stretching the tightness. Once you identify that your hip flexors are tight, then you want to get into some exercises that will help kind of stretch out those hip flexors and get that hip back into a normal posture.
Yeah, well said. And, while we're on the topic of lower back injuries, I mean, those are things that are very common, especially in golf. I mean, you're generating a lot of club head speed. Yeah. And so hamstrings play a role. Having, flexible hamstrings, if they're not, can play a role in creating some back injury as well. So first off, where are hamstrings in relation to our body, and what are some of the issues that it causes that affects the lower body, the lower back rather?
Yeah, where hip flexors tend to impact more women, tight hamstrings tend to impact more men. And the hamstrings are the muscles in the back of your thigh. And again, they attach to the hip bone from underneath. And if they're tight, what's going to happen is they'll take the hip bone and they'll rotate the hip bone backwards. All right, so you're going to get a posterior tilt of the hip. Now, what that does is it takes that normal curve in the lumbar spine and it will actually straighten it out just a little bit, which you think would be a good thing, but you don't want to deviate from that normal curve in the lumbar spine in the lower back. So if you increase it with tight hip flexors or you decrease it with tight hamstrings, either case, you're putting more pressure on those discs in between the vertebrae, and you're going to wear those discs out faster. And when you think about how many times you're bending over to tee up the ball, take the ball out of the hole, I mean, the hamstrings should allow that hip bone to rotate as you do bend over. But at some point, tight hamstrings are going to say, okay, that's it. We're not letting you bend anymore, but I got to reach another foot to get the ball. So something's got to give, and that's usually going to be your low back muscles. And that's why, again, number one, low back injuries, number one, is because a lot of us are predisposed to low back injury and discomfort.
Yeah, and again, another great point. And ideally, and we talked about this a little earlier on in one of our other segments that we've done early in the season, and we talked about what is an ideal amount of time to be spending each week exercising. And I hate to even use the word exercise, because everybody, as soon as they hear that, they go, oh God, I got to do this. But really preparing, for success out in the golf course. And that's different than a warm-up, because that's two different things. I mean, we're talking about general exercising. Obviously, that's going to be more golf fitness, golf conducive. And then there's warming up before we get out, and play that round. So maybe we could, what ideally amount of time is realistic that you're going to not only see results, but you're going to experience some noticeable changes with the body? How much time per week and how much time in a session if we're doing things correctly?
I mean, that's really dependent upon how tight you are. I mean, the key is that you're doing it on a consistent basis, stretching, that is.
Right.
The thing with stretching and range of motion flexibility is you want to get symmetry back in the body, right? Mm-hmm. You want the left side to be as loose as the right side. You want to be able to feel the same degree of tightness reaching to your right as you do reaching to your left. Most of us tend to have a dominant side, a stronger side, a tighter side based on lifestyle. If you played sports growing up, golf itself will create these deficiencies in your body. But, having kids, carrying kids on one side of the body all the time will strengthen that side of the body more so than the other side. So things that you do throughout your life are going to create these muscle deficiencies and these imbalances in your body, which leads to the misalignments, which leads to the aches and the pains and the arthritis, and then you're getting your knee replaced and your hip replaced. So stretching on a regular basis, I mean, if you can do it daily, that would be fantastic. But, most days of the week, if you can get into it doesn't take a whole lot of time.
No.
I mean, 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes every day, every other day can really do wonders in terms of bringing back that symmetry to the body so that you reduce the potential for injury and you enhance your playing performance.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, and you could certainly advise better, but if let's say 10, 15 minutes a day, would it even be worth it for some people that are really time restricted? Maybe let's do 5, 6, 7 minutes right now, and then maybe later in the day do another 5 or 6. You know what I mean? When you've got some free time, so you're splitting it up. So you're, because you can say, well, I'll get 15 minutes out this morning, and I'm good for the rest of the day. But you're doing different things throughout the course of the day that are going to tighten things back up again. So if you're maybe doing 5 minutes in the morning when you're getting up and loosening up and getting ready for the day, and then maybe, do another 5 minutes partway through the day, later in the afternoon or early evening or something like that, and other things, maybe going for a good walk, but just doing things and keeping yourself active throughout the day and not just sort of rushing to get something done. But everybody can throw 5 minutes here and there. A lot easier than trying to, 15 to 20 minutes to do some sort of a program. And that's where, a lot of people fall into that trap. Is that a pretty good assessment?
Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier. And anytime you get a chance to stretch, I mean, there are times during the day that you can just do a stretch. Yeah, you don't have to necessarily group it all into one time span. But, that's the number one thing that would improve a lot of people's golf game is just getting into a little bit of stretching and being consistent with it. I see it time and time again. Because the number one thing that people need when I put people through assessments is flexibility, range of motion. We're all tight. We're all tight.
Yeah. And again, obviously, as we get older, things happen more naturally, but there's things that we can do to you're never going to be, like you were in your 20s, but, you can certainly improve things dramatically by keeping active and doing things. But again, because you're wanting to be successful in playing golf, you've got to make sure that these are exercises that are going to be conducive. Flexibility, like you said, I mean, range of motion is another one you talk about, and that is, trying to develop an adequate range of motion, especially with the mid-back, the lats, if you will, and because people need to have a good shoulder turn. You do have a good shoulder turn, and you create that sort of torque, if you will, between your lower and upper body. You're going to be able to generate a little more club head speed. And there's a lot of people that can't separate the two, and so they're not able to generate any power. And everybody wants to hit the ball farther. So that's another issue that people face with and again, that's where the flexibility comes in, is their lack of. Is that correct?
Heck, yeah, definitely, most definitely. I mean, like you say, the tightness will kind of lead to improper swing faults and stuff like that is going to wreck your game. So if you take your time and take the time to implement a little bit of stretching throughout the day and throughout the week, yeah, it can make a huge difference in your golf.
Well, and also too, I think, Bob, is a lot of players out there, young and old, because they're not doing a lot of things like that and they're not as physically active as, maybe players in the past, and I'm excluding obviously tour players, they're tending to make more mistakes, because they're not able to make good contact with the ball. They don't have the flexibility. They don't have the body structure in order, because, what people don't realize, I mean, the golf swing, basically you're looking at 2 seconds. I mean, you're a second on the way back and a second on the way through. I mean, that's pretty quick. Mm-hmm. And, if you're tense and tight and you've got a death grip on the club because your muscles are so tense all the time, and you're not in a good posture, you're not going to be able to generate any speed, and you're not going to be able to get the distance, and you're not going to make good contact. And that creates a whole myriad of bad issues And what a lot of people do, and I think you've seen this in your career, is they start blaming the swing mechanics. Well, maybe my grip's not good, and really the culprit might be is, hey, you're just not in good shape, right?
Right. I mean, when TPI came out with all this stuff back in 2006, all the studies that they've done and continue to do, I mean, there are such strong correlations between specific muscle deficiencies and specific swing faults that impact the efficiency of the golf swing and distance, like you say, and injury potential. So getting into a little stretching program done on a regular basis can impact all three of those areas, and you're on your way to a better game.
Yeah, and I was just talking about the next point you had here is about that X factor, and that's really what I was alluding to is having that sort of disassociate the upper body from the lower body. I mean, I've seen a lot of players at all levels, or all age groups rather, and men and women that just don't do that. I mean, there's almost no difference, or they end up, in order to get the club, up to the top, they're swaying off to one side, and in order to do that, and then they've now got to sway back to the other side just to try to make contact, and it just creates a whole myriad of problems. And a lot of as you said, the culprit is not that the equipment's bad or that necessarily the technique's bad. Is that they can't perform the golf swing in this proper context because they're out of shape. They're not, they don't have the flexibility.
Yeah, and I always kind of use the what do you call it? It's like if somebody buys a used car, right? And they figured, okay, let me put 4 new tires on this car, and it's going to make the car run better. Where really it's the engine. And in golf, buying a new driver or buying the latest, greatest golf ball is not going to really change all that much until you fix the mechanism that's swinging the golf club and hit that golf ball, and that's the body. So that should be number one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I know we've got a lot of other points, but we're getting close to winding down here in a moment or two. But I wanted to give you a few minutes. Now, I know you've got a great book, and what I'm going to do is I was going to put the cover up here, but the image didn't come out as sharp as I wanted. But I'm going to have this put up on golftipsmag.com this weekend, so I'll get a little cleaner copy if I can of the book jacket, and then I've got the link at where they can purchase it. So we'll get that up on this weekend, just in time for Memorial Weekend and just ahead of Father's Day for that. But maybe just tell us a little bit about the book, what's in it, and the name of it first off, what's the name of it, and where they can get it.
Yeah, the book's called Functional Golf Fitness Training. They can get it on the book patch. And it kind of gets into, all the stuff we're talking about, the physicality of the golf swing. It can take them through assessments that they can do on their own to determine where their deficiencies are. And then I kind of demonstrate 2 or 3 exercises for each deficiency that they can do to start to correct those deficiencies and help their golf game. And there's a chapter in there about why low back is so prevalent with golfers. I talk about myofascial release and massage, which is a big thing nowadays, which we can talk about, on one session. So it kind of gets into some of the weeds with all that stuff. The book patch is where they can find it.
Perfect. As I said, we'll get that up on the website, and folks can. I'll make sure people have the link to be able to go and purchase it, because I think it's a great idea, and it's something you need. As I said, we're getting into the early part of the season. Some folks, fortunate enough to be in the Southeast and even Southwest, are able to play pretty much all year round. But some of the golfers up in the Northeast are still experiencing some cooler temperatures. My previous guest is up in Colorado, and they're still got a little bit of snow up there. So not saying they're not out there playing, but there's still a little bit of snow on the ground, and so they still got a little ways to go. So now's a good time to get out there and start working and getting. I mean, you really should have been doing it through the winter months, but it's never too late to get out there and start doing things. So that's a great way to do it with Bob's book. So, Bob, I want to thank you as always. I look forward to having you come back in a couple of weeks. We'll pick up where we left off. I know there's a lot of other good points as well, but I appreciate that. I think it's important for us to, as I said, as a teacher professional, it's always nice to, to be able to talk about the golf swing and things like that. But I think this is an equally, if not more important aspect that gets overlooked a lot, especially by amateurs. The pros, I mean, they've got their their workout trailers and that with them on tour, and they've got, personal, instructors and things like that they can help, fitness instructors that they can work with and get them in shape. But the average golfer out there doesn't sometimes know what to do. And so hopefully we can help them a little bit this season. But I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, and they can also go to the website, Golf Fit Carolina. It's one F and one T, GOLFIT Carolina.com. I've got articles on there. I've got some videos on there. So there's a lot of good resources there for them to check out.
Sounds good. GolfFitCarolina.com. And I think your book is on there as well. So they can actually, is it not? I believe they can do that as well. So it is on there. But as I said, I'll have it up on Golf Tips Mag for this weekend for sure. So you can check that out there as well. But Bob, thank you very much as always. Hang tight. I'm going to take another quick commercial break. And when I come back, I'll be speaking with tonight's featured guest. So I hope you stick around.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to read your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited to introduce tonight's featured guest. Let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get into tonight's interesting dialogue with the Vice President of Sales of the Indoor Golf Shop, Justin Carlson. Let me tell you a little bit about him. He's a highly accomplished executive leader with a deep knowledge of all sales and marketing processes, operations, all sales exec at top golf technology companies. He has a proven track record of developing existing relationships and cultivating new business partnerships. Carlson, who earned a Bachelor of Science degree from Illinois State University, is experienced in collaborating with cross-functional teams to develop and launch new products to current and prospective markets. And he's currently at the Indoor Golf Shop. And I'm going to let him tell a little bit about them. But Justin, welcome to the show.
Thanks. That was a heck of an intro, too. I love it. I couldn't have written it better myself.
Well, I don't know about that. I think you could have done better, but not bad for a first time. But welcome to the show. I appreciate you coming on tonight and spending some time with my audience. So tell us a little bit about the Indoor Golf Shop. For people that are not familiar with it, just give us a sort of an overview of what it's about.
Sure. So we are the Indoor Golf Shop. We're based out of Salina, Texas, which is in North Dallas, a booming area down there. We do everything end-to-end in indoor golf simulators. So we do light level manufacturing, impact screens, enclosures, turf, hitting mats. We have an e-commerce site, which is shopindoorgolf.com that we operate. And then we also do, we have a design and installation arm, in-home golf, that we also operate. And that does custom design and installation for, homes that don't want something out of the box. They want something more specific to their home to kind of match the decor of the home. We have showrooms in Dallas. We have showrooms in Chicago and in Toronto.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. I didn't know. I'm a Canadian, so
fantastic.
So I know
in Mississauga. I'll be a bit more specific, so that makes more sense.
Okay, yeah. Perfect. Whereabouts in Mississauga?
It's just opposite side of the airport of the international airport up there.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're talking about. What area you're talking about? Well, that's fantastic. That's great. So, so that gives us a little bit of an overview. But what I wanted to ask you is, I remember going several years back to the PGA show. I go every year. I didn't make it this past season, but I was there the year before. And probably for quite a few years now. And I remember not so long ago, there was very few, simulators out there. You didn't really see a lot. Now, you're seeing a lot. So it's become a very big market. But how has that indoor simulator market really changed, especially in the last 5 years? How have you seen it grown, and why do you think it's sort of moved in that direction?
Sure. Well, I think the technology space and simulators in general have historically been very, very expensive and out of reach for the general consumer or, kind of that middle market consumer. COVID really rocket launched this whole industry and kind of forced people two things: to play golf and to be indoors. So you can do both of those with the indoor golf simulator. I've been going to the PGA show for the past 4 or 5 years. And I think my first year, there were just a handful of technology companies and simulator things. And now this past year, it's like almost 25% of the show floor is dedicated to indoor golf simulation, and it will continue to grow. It's been a fantastic industry to be in, to be a part of, and to really continue to see it grow.
Well, and I think too, it's like anything, any market, when it's first out there, it's price-wise, it's a little bit more, costly initially, but as more and more people get into the market, and obviously organizations like yourself that have been around for some time, you're able to be even more competitive now with your products, Matt. And it really kind of seems that now that especially with launch monitors and sort of the sim solutions, if you will, is really now available. What I was getting to is at every price point. So how do you help customers sort of understand how to optimize their indoor golf purchase? So how do you help them decide what it is they really need to do and get the best option available?
Yeah, great question. So we really take a consultative approach, and we have an inside sales team and support team, but really we consider them as consultants and really working with that customer to find out. Number one is, how big of a space do they have? That will limit what you can and cannot do within that space. Then it becomes budget. What really do you want to accomplish with the space? Do you want to be you want to hone your game? Do you want to work on skills? Do you want to just play golf courses? Do you want to entertain your friends? So we'll kind of take that and build out a package specifically for them that's going to fulfill their needs. And at the end of the day, budget obviously is a big thing. You could spend as little as a couple $1,000s or as much as over $100,000, and anything in between.
And you touched on something that's really interesting because, again, you talk about, sort of that home, matching that home decor, meaning that you want it to feel like it's a part of the home and it's not just something that's sort of lumped into a corner or into a room. And now, I mean, as I said, I've been to the show for several years, and you're seeing, an onslaught of the man cave and not to take away from the ladies. I know they enjoy their golf too, but you're seeing, this is sort of the new man cave for a lot of the guy golfers out there, because and it's not just as you pointed out, it's not just for learning to improve your game or just playing a bunch of courses. It's become an entertainment. It's now become something where you can invite some couples over and actually have a lot of fun and maybe have a few drinks and play some golf and all in the comfort of your own home, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of families that the husband plays golf, the kids maybe play golf, but there's options for like multi-sport. So if you wanted to play bags on it, you want to play frisbee, you wanted to kick a dodgeball, you could do that. There's also, within different softwares that the technology companies have, you can swing the golf club, but you're playing like Angry Birds or you're playing bowling.
Okay.
So it's not just going out and playing on a golf course, which, some people enjoy, some people may not enjoy that. But if they want to kind of, like you said, have a couple drinks, you can do that. But then you could take that space and you could flex it into a theater room. You could, put a movie on, you put on the NHL finals, you could do, Super Bowl, you name it. You can do that as well.
Oh, wow, that's cool. I was about to say, because I was going to ask you what were some of the big tech breakthroughs that you have, and obviously that's part of it there is it's not just limited to golf. There's a lot of other things that can be capitalized. But what has happened? What's changed in the technology in, over, say, the last 4 or 5 years since you've been going down to the PGA show? What is it on your end? What are you seeing some of the big breakthroughs?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of just the on-course to off-course, the metrics are becoming pretty spot on to what you see outside is what you're going to see indoors. Now it does that accuracy, fluctuates a little bit depending on the technology that you have, where the launch monitor is placed, on the floor, behind you, above you, and then what technology they're using. Is it radar technology, photometric, Doppler, all of that takes into account. But I think the accuracy is dead near what you're seeing outdoors. And then we're really seeing a lot of the software really up their game with 4K graphics. So it's the only thing you're missing is the smells and like the wind and the rain. That's really all you're missing. But you can dial those in within the software and you can make it as realistic as you want. I personally don't do that. I want to feel good about myself when I'm playing indoors. I feel worse outdoors, so I'd rather feel good indoors. So I think that's what we're starting to see. And then you're really starting to see a lot of the AI technology get integrated into those software platforms with swing analysis and things like that. So we're going to continue to kind of see that be a bit more acceptable in the software platforms.
You're seeing with a lot of the handheld technology out there where they can access, thousands of golf courses. Is that similar with what you guys are offering as well? I mean, it's not just, necessarily one or two courses. They have options if they want to, maybe not thousands, but if they want to have multiple courses, is there different packages that they can get with it? Where maybe basic packages comes with 3 golf courses. I'm just trying to get a general idea of how it works.
Yeah, it really all depends on which launch monitor technology are you going to use. If you use something like a TrackMan, they have their own software and they have plenty of courses, well-known courses that are mapped out and true to on-course feel. Then you'll have things like Unicore. They use like a third-party platform, and that's going to have hundreds of golf courses beyond, maybe close to 1,000 and growing. So it really just depends on what technology you end up going with, but there's so many different software options out there that are available.
Now, if you, again, depending on what package you go with, do you have options? Let's say if you get package A and you want to upgrade, is it a fairly easy upgrade, or do you have to upgrade equipment, or there's some situation where maybe equipment is necessary, or once you purchase, make the initial purchase, you have options to upgrade the system or what have you as you go along as you're
a lot of the software companies are now starting to go kind of do an annual subscription, so you can stop or start at any point in time. For certain softwares, you can go in one technology and then you can upgrade to a new technology and just transfer your subscription over. So really, I think it's pretty easy to do that, because we see a lot of our customers starting with a lower price point technology to kind of get into the industry and get into simulation. And then a year, 2 years down the road, they're like, oh, you know what? That was great, but I want something different. My needs change. So now I can upgrade that technology.
So that's what I'm getting at, because, you're coming in, you're setting things up, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. But give us an idea of the overall mission of the Indoor Golf Shop. What sort of sets you apart in this environment?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a great set of core values that really parallel the game of golf. Top of mind is take care of the customer always. Customer always comes first. That's who puts food on our plates. That's who keeps the lights on. That's what we do. So we really go above and beyond to service our customer. We treat every customer like they are our only customer. We make sure that everybody from support, sales to operations to shipping, everything is handled with care. We make sure that it arrives in time. Over communication is extremely important to us to make sure that they are happy with their purchase, that they're going to talk nicely about us to their friends when they have them over. The other thing is, we kind of work as if, what was it? Just do what's right for the customer. I mean, honestly, I think that's our biggest core value, and everything else kind of goes there. Just be great. Like, always keep score, do what's right. Even when nobody's looking. I mean, that's just kind of like the game of golf. Don't take shortcuts.
Yeah. Don't be kicking it out of the rough.
Exactly.
And that's a great point, Justin, because, I think for businesses that, there's a lot of great products out there in every market, but it comes down to customer service. It's okay. Once they've got your product, are they following up? Are they engaging with you? Are they making sure, that you're satisfied with the product? Not just, immediately post sale, but, down the road, are they following up? Are they, engaging with you? Are they responding to, questions or concerns that you may have, or issues that, from time to time that arise? And it's particularly when you're dealing with more of an in-home market, and that's something I wanted to ask you about as well. This is a bit of a game changer for you, because you guys ended up buying in-home golf business, and that sort of allows you, now you're going and actually installing through that as well. So it's not just you're selling something, somebody else is coming in. You guys are now sort of a one-stop shop. So that's a big game changer for you, right?
Yeah, I would say that really completed kind of the circle for us. That was our kind of last piece of the puzzle. We were doing everything, and then we were just shipping it out, and somebody else would install it. So we never really got to see that final product firsthand unless they sent a picture to us. So now we're really able to be completely vertically integrated. We control every step of the way, from manufacturing through the purchase process to the installation, and then post-purchase as well. So it's nice to be able to kind of handhold that customer throughout that journey. And they become friends of ours, right? We get Christmas cards, we get cookies, all that stuff, right? It's cool. We for the first time, like kind of in my professional career, it's not like I'm selling at all. Like a lot of times the customers are selling us. Like, I need this in my home, and it's like, we will find you a way to get this in your house.
Well, and that's the way you want it. Is you want to have it really comes down to sales is really nothing but more than really relationships, and the more close the relationship you can have with a customer, and they're confident in what choices you're making and helping them decisions making. And I always equate it to, the reason why I was so curious about that was because now you see on TV there's a company, I think it's called Anderson Windows, and that's what made me think of it is they do everything the same as what you're doing. Is they don't just make the product, but they manufacture it, they sell it, they do everything. And that's essentially what the Indoor Golf Shop is doing now as well. Is you guys are not just producing everything on your end, but you're actually out installing it. You're seeing the customers, you're getting in touch with them, and you're seeing the finished product. So you have a little bit more sense of pride as opposed to just shipping it out the door and letting somebody else take with it, because that can, unfortunately, and I know you have to sometimes start in that market, but it's nice when you're able to come full circle and be able to bring that in home, because that is a huge, huge selling feature.
Yeah, I would say it also helps us stay in tune with the customer. We can see it being installed, and we can then make changes and adjust our products to make sure that we're providing the best experience for that customer as well. So we can see it, our installers are the last line of kind of defense for us. They can tell us, well, that looked great on paper, but here's what really happened, and how can we optimize? How can we make changes? What improvements can we make? Things like that.
Yeah, and it's important. And again, having that rapport with customers, I think, is always important. And their feedback's important, not just in the good times, but also when things are not quite right and you need to make those adjustments. It's good to have that feedback. And I don't mean necessarily that they're unhappy, but maybe things are not working the way that you would like, even, never mind them. So then you need to go back, okay, maybe we need to look at the software. Maybe there's a glitch here, or there's something that needs to be adjusted to make it a better experience. So there's always going to be tweaks and things. And really, it's one thing in-house to be able to have those conversations and meetings and stuff, but the feedback you get from customers, how much they're enjoying the experience, and hey, the technology is fantastic. I really love this. And it's almost like playing outdoor, whatever the feedback is, that's huge for you guys, because that then allows you to know that you're moving in a direction that you want to move in. And if there are adjustments along the way, then, it's fine to do that.
I would say when we get like a bad review or unhappy customer, our founder will take that and he will have a meeting with all the leadership team, and he'll say, what happened and how do we fix it, right? How do we make it right? So he takes great pride in providing that experience, because we definitely we can't make everybody happy. We'll do our hardest to do that. But those negative reviews that we will get oftentimes, right? We can't please everybody, but we will make sure that experience will never happen again, and we'll go above and beyond with that customer that had that experience.
Well, and again, it goes to, not just, obviously the big part of it is the credibility of an organization, but it goes to, how you respond really says a lot about an organization. It lets you know where their priority is. Obviously you're in business, you have to eat, and sure, you're there to sell products and that, but at the same time, if customers are not seeing some sort of a follow-up or an engagement, and they're always, I know this, even, I hate to say it, but even with the cable company, your TV goes on the fritz or something, or cable's not working, or internet's not working, and you're putting that constant, loop, if you will, and it's frustrating, and people hate it. But, we have gotten to the point we can't live without our TV, so, you have to put up with it sometimes. But But for companies like yourselves, it's customer service. I don't care how good the product is. It has to be there, and it has to be up to snuff, or people are just not going to deal with it. Tell us about the SIG. Yeah, tell us about the Impact screen, the SIG Pro Premier Impact screen. That sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, so we just launched that 4 weeks ago, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago or so. So it's like a 4K gray screen. So there's only so many things you can kind of innovate in kind of our world, and that was a really cool addition into our arsenal. So it's a 4K screen, gray in color. It's great for like areas that have a little bit of ambient lighting or higher lit areas, and it provides a more definition of the darker colors and kind of enriches that whole picture. Yeah. and really brings out that 4K projector. So if you're doing like a movie theater space where it's super dark, we still recommend our premium screen, white screen, to go for that. But if you've got something in a garage or something with windows, right, in a loft, something like that, we definitely recommend going with that premier screen.
So that's just sort of eliminates the glare and things like that. It's really what that's for, right?
Exactly.
It's just amazing when I think about the technology, and as I said, like you, I've been down to the PGA show for many years, and as this has been unfolding, it just blows my mind when I watch the demonstrations, and I mean, I'm sure even from your perspective, you're in part of the industry. Every time you guys have meetings, say, "Hey, guess what's coming out?" or "This is coming out." You guys got to get pretty jazzed up about that.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely. Sometimes, like with the technology stuff, we'll get kind of a preview before it gets launched to the public, so that we can kind of get our team prepared. Because the moment it launches, like we get phone calls, like, "Tell me about this." So we want to make sure our team's prepared for a lot of the technology launches. But there's things that we have, personally that I can't talk about, but we have on the horizon that will be coming out. That is, would I say it's industry changing? I wouldn't go that far, but it's cool stuff. Like it's just. It's really cool to be able to see kind of our engineers working on that, our design team working on it, and being able to launch that to the public will be really cool as well.
And obviously, this has a huge commercial impact as well. I mean, before it was coming in home, there was a lot of businesses popping up that had these indoor simulators, Matt, for corporate events and for I know in New York there's a company, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Yes.
Yep.
They've got that in there, and they've turned it into a business, and very, very successful and doing well. So a lot of those popped up. Now it's coming more in home and that. Where do you see the market as far as, is this something that you think that the next generation of golfers is really going to drive? I mean, I'm as you can see, I got a little gray on top here, and so I'm, in young 60s, but nevertheless in the 60s. So, I've been around for a little while, seen a lot of things come up. But is it the younger generation that's really going to start driving this because they're sort of already tuned into technology quite a lot? And is that what's sort of helping to drive your market a little bit, you think?
I would agree with that statement. Having young kids, relatively younger kids myself, I've got a 16-year-old who he plays indoors and outdoors. He likes to kind of play both, but on a rainy day, he'll come to our office and he'll hit on the range for an hour or two because he can't go play outside. So I think, and he can play a round of golf in an hour. Whereas outdoors, it's still nice to be outdoors, but it could be 6-7 hours of your time round trip, with everything all included. And he's on a limited income, so he can't go play the nicer courses outdoors, but he can play the great courses indoors.
Yeah, he can play some that probably, he might not get to play for some years indoors. So yeah, that's for sure.
Exactly. So I think, I would agree that the younger generation is already in tune to technology. They're in tune to all of that. They're used to playing video games inside. So I think they're really gravitating towards that space as well.
Talk about this sort of integration with, because it's not just a matter of, you said there were some other sports and things, activities you can do, but let's stick with the golf for a second here and talk about sort of the integration of technology from a teaching perspective. I mean, this is a great opportunity. for a lot of coaches in that to use that? What technology is there? What is available to a coach, let's say, that has a simulator at their facility? What is some of the technology that they can utilize when they're working with students?
Sure. So if you look at something like a TrackMan technology, which is the cream of the crop, the gold standard in the industry, they've got impact replay. So you are seeing the actual video of the club at impact to the ball. You can then see kind of a little bit of the spin of the ball. You can see where you're going there. So the coach can then make adjustments. They're then looking at attack angle and spin rates and all that stuff. But then you can actually hook up your iPhone to the system, and you can then look at your swing. So you're able to really immediately, that coach can make a correction or a minor correction or a tweak, and you can then see that correction in real time after they make that next swing, and then you're able to dial in. So the feedback is immediate. There's no guessing because you're seeing the actual video of impact and of the swing as well.
So is there some kind of in that case, and I want to just play on that for a second more, is there like an app integration for the student? So in a sense that when they're together in a session and they're getting that data coming back, and you're saying if they've got an iPhone there, can that student then take that data and review it, and then the next time they get together, if they've had a chance to look at some of that, the coach can maybe, is there an integration that way as well?
Yeah, what's cool, so TrackMan has, I think it's TrackMan Golf app. Right. So you go to any facility that has a TrackMan unit, you scan a QR code, you're automatically logged in. Every shot that you take at the range, at a golf, every swing is all downloaded into an app, and I can go back from last year and look at a range session. I can, select my 9-iron. Okay, what was my shot dispersion? What were my spin rates? Like what were my distances? All of that. So it's nice to be able to, like, my son just started playing golf last year, and I've encouraged him to always scan the QR code and see your progression, see your distances. How are you improving? How are you not improving? And so he can kind of take that and run with that data as well.
Yeah, and that's important in this day and age, and that's why I was really touching on the, sort of the youth and the upcoming players, and not just necessarily, those that want to aspire to be tour players, but when you're looking at, junior golfers or golfers that maybe want to play collegiate golf at some point, they're starting to understand the importance of statistics. It's not just about looking pretty out there. I mean, they all want to look good, but they also understand that they've got to have a good understanding of the numbers, and they need to know what those numbers are. So if there's a way to integrate that, of course. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're absolutely right, because really you could make a 1% adjustment, and you either increase your club speed by a half mile per hour or 1 mile per hour, and you'll see how that actually changes the total distance, the spin, like all of that. So it's just amazing how, and then they're integrating like flexibility workouts and things like that. And how can I get more flexible to get more speed? And then you're seeing that impact right away.
Now, is there, and when I'm using the word integration, there may be a different way of doing this. So let's say, for an example, let's say you weren't doing what you were doing, and your son, you had a simulator, one of these simulators at home, and the weather's kind of nasty. His coach is, an hour down the road or 30 minutes down the road. Can he work on his game in that simulator, and can that data then be connected with the coach? Is that something that's available, or is that something that could be available coming down the road?
I don't want to speak out of turn, but I do believe there are options to do something like that, and if there's not, it's going to be out.
Yeah, okay, and that's what I'm saying, is it may not currently be because I mean that's going to be huge as well, because again, there's going to be situations where you've got maybe a collegiate player and the weather's just bad, but he's got access to a simulator somewhere, whether it's at home or somewhere else, and if the coach is then able to integrate somehow with that technology, whether logging in under a back end or something like that they can get a hold of that data, so that when they are able to get next time together, then he can say, okay, you were practicing last Thursday, I'm looking at the numbers here, and then they can make adjustments and go from there. So, I mean, if it's not available, I mean, that's something that's I want credit for that if it's not.
Yeah, at the PGA show 2 years ago, I do remember seeing like a third party kind of app that had that ability to do that. So Yeah, I mean, if it's not out now, it's probably someo's listening to this. It's gonna be out like next week. So,
well, there you go. So, all right. So you talked about earlier. You've got some rooms. You got a room in Dallas and also in Chicago. I know you mentioned Toronto on that, but I understand they're quite decked out and quite impressive. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to brag a little bit about them. So let's talk about Dallas first.
Sure.
So, we're coming to visit the showroom there. What are we looking at?
Yeah, so Dallas kind of started out with humble beginnings. We started out in just kind of a small corner of a kind of a warehouse space, and it quickly turned into we took over the whole entire property, and there was a house for sale on the corner that we ended up acquiring, and turned that home into a simulator house, so people can actually walk into a home and see what a simulator would look like. We then expanded kind of the garage space, and we have all of our enclosures, all different technologies. So really anybody can come out, whatever their budget is, they can test out hitting mats, and they can look at the enclosures, they can look at our turf, they can look at, something as low as a $700 launch monitor up to the $25,000 TrackMan unit and everything in between. So we really try to stay brand agnostic and allow the customer to kind of guide us where they want to go, and not kind of pigeonhole them into something right off the bat. Really find out, what are they looking for? What do they want? And then we'll kind of, expand on options for them. So yeah, the Dallas facility is a really, really cool area.
Now, what about Chicago?
Chicago. So I'm based out of that office. So we've got 2 hitting bays there, one for our custom solution with our TrackMan high-end bay. And then we've got another bay that is our commercial enclosure, kind of a modular type. If you were a golf course that you wanted to have it seasonally and you wanted to have kind of simulator space in the winter, you could put this up, and then you still have your golfers coming in and playing. And then you could take it down during the actual season. So we've got 2 hitting bays there, and then in Toronto we have 2.5 hitting bays there as well. So all the different technologies.
Fantastic. So let's say, for an example, if somebody reaches out and says, "I want to bring a simulator into my home," I mean, obviously you send somebody out there, they kind of map see where it's going to go, what they want to do, the sizes and all, and get all the dimensions. Once you have all that information, you've made you've sort of gone back and forth as to how to meet their needs. You understand the budget and that. Once it goes from that stage to getting it installed, how much of a time frame, how long does it take from you once the sale has been done to get it installed for the customer so that it's now up and running, typically? Yeah,
I would say right now it's probably 4 to 6 weeks roughly, because we especially for the custom side of things, we make everything to spec. So it's not like a stock size. Everything is made to that space. So we're about 5 to 6 weeks right now. Come peak season, which starts in that August, September, October, our lead times are a little bit longer. So when people are looking at it, when you're playing golf outside is the best time to look at getting it indoors, because you can get in really quick and then you can be ready to play. Right. It's seamless. You're outdoor to indoor, and you won't even skip a beat.
Yeah, and that's important too, and that's a great point that you raised, because a lot of people might, want something like that, and you don't want to wait until typically the off season of golf, because then you're sitting around for a month or 2 months or whatever the case may be, waiting for things to come out. So yeah, that's a good idea to get it in the summer and get it up and running, and then when the fall or early winter comes around and you can't be outside anymore to play, you're ready to rock and roll, as it were. So.
Exactly.
I already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyways. After all these years working at indoor golf, I'm assuming you still find the technology and the simulator experience sort of fun and engaging. What is it? I guess let me phrase it this way. What do you enjoy most about your job?
Oh, man. I would say I kind of alluded to it earlier. It's the first kind of sales company I've worked with where I didn't have to, people were happy to talk to me and got upset if they missed my phone call. I think our customers are probably the best to work with in prior lives of mine and companies I've worked for. We work with extremely high net worth individuals. We work with golf enthusiasts, golf clubs, PGA professionals, you name it. It's just kind of cool. We never know who we're going to get a phone call from, right? Or, who we're going to go do an install for. So it's just really cool to kind of talk to our customers and just learn more about them. So I would say that's probably, I love the technology aspect of it, but I would say our customers are probably my favorite part of working here.
And tell us a little bit more. I know you've talked a little bit about the customers already, but what are some of the common questions that they ask? And what typically, obviously you have some that are very more experienced golfers and really know it, and they've done a lot of research. They've, done their homework. They know exactly what they want. Then you have some that are maybe a little more green, but what are some of the common questions or maybe needs that they've expressed?
Yeah, I think the biggest question we get is this going to fit in my space, right? Like, they're so desperate a lot of times to, they may have the smallest closet of a room and they're like, this is the only room in the house my wife would allow me to have this. Like, I pray to you, like, please help me. Like, this is all I have. So we'll work with them as best we can. There's sometimes we do have to say no, because it's like, if you have less than 8-foot ceilings and you can't even swing, sometimes you can't even swing a sand wedge in those spaces. So, then we turn the conversation to, okay, if it won't fit here, like, do you have is there a room in the basement? Do you have, a place in the garage? Like, the garage is always a place, so we can come up with a garage solution. Like, we always want to find a solution for the customer because we know how obsessive we are about the game of golf. I think all of our sales team and support team, they're all golfers. So they get it. They're like, I want you to have this in your house. Like, let's figure out a way to get this there.
That would be a good sales angle, for you guys is, ladies, if you want to get your husband to clean out the garage, come to Indoor Golf. The simulator takes up a lot less room than all those tools that he doesn't use. And that old car he's been talking about fixing up for the last 20 years and hasn't, tightened or unloosed the screw on. So this is something that is an option for the ladies to do. So, obviously the website is shopindoorgolf.com. And the reason I didn't bring it up earlier is I wanted people to be, paying attention to the show. And now I want them to go out there and that. So, they can obviously contact you guys. I know videos on there, and there's also, I'm assuming that they can get a look at some of the simulators that you have in your showrooms and in your Chicago and your Dallas area as well. They can kind of see how things are set up and that. And then obviously they've got some great staff like yourself that they can reach out to and if they've got any questions. But what are your final thoughts if you want for the audience out there and you want them to know that maybe we haven't talked about?
I would just say, the game of golf is a lifetime, game, and it's never too late to get into it. You could be at any age. I thought, like I was alluded to earlier, I've been trying to get my older son to play golf for the last 10 years, and he finally picked it up last year. And he's like, the joy on his face when he came home was like, Dad, did you know how fun this game is? I was like, dude, I've been like 10 years, you've been trying. And he is so obsessive over it. He plays every day. And every day he can't play, he gets upset. So, and it's a game that, it's cool because my dad, who's in his late 70s now, myself, and now my son, it's generational, right? We can all go out and we can play. And where there's a will, there's a way. We will find a way to get something into your house or your garage or an outbuilding or a shed or, where we want people to play the game of golf as much as possible because it's so much fun. So I would say it's never too late.
Yeah, I know some guys personally that would knock down a wall if they had to get one in their house. So, I'm sure you've had some interesting requests along the way. But obviously, everybody, we want you to go to shopindoorgolf.com. It's the website. A lot of great information. And Justin has been my very special guest this evening, Justin Carlson, the Vice President of Sales for the Indoor Golf Shop. And Justin, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. The best way is to go through our website, shopindoorgolf.com. If they want to email me, it's my first name last name, justin.carlson@shopindoorgolf.com. And we'd be happy to connect you with one of our sales consultants, get you out to one of our showrooms to take a look at what we've got and get you swinging in no time.
Sounds good. All right, I want to thank you for joining this evening, being my special featured guest. I appreciate it. A lot of great information. Again, the website is stopindoorgolf.com. Make sure you go there and check it out. A lot of great information there, and definitely reach out to their team and have a conversation and get the ball rolling, as they say. But I want to thank all of my special guests tonight. Special thanks to Alex Fisher for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel a little bit earlier on, and for my very good friend, golf fitness professional, Bob Forman, for coming on and talking about some fitness must-haves for a better golf swing this season. So on that note, again, thanks to all of my special guests, and don't forget to visit our YouTube channel at iGolf Sports at youtube.com/@iGolfSports. All of the podcast episodes are uploaded onto that, or you can get them on Spotify.com. And if you're just interested in listening to the audio version, maybe you're driving along and you can't watch it, you can go to Spreaker.com, or basically wherever you listen to podcasts, you can check it out there. But on that note, I will see you guys next week here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Justin.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.